life above all else is to be what I need to be for them.
Yeah.
So like,
well, the first thing is you have to do is first of all, I hear every time you talk and you're open and transparent about your story. I mean, you break down this sort of toxic masculinity in such a way, a very casual way, which I just applaud you on, because even being able to talk about the fear or the anxiety that you had growing up with your father not being and your mother being sick, I mean, all of that allows other men who look up to you to say, it's okay for me to acknowledge it. And that's the first key in growing and healing. And so when I think about my own father, I do feel very comfortable in knowing that I've acknowledged what happened and that I'm on my journey of healing. And I would not be human if I didn't say that there are days when, you know, something will trigger me. Again, going back to that statement I said earlier, if it's hysterical, it's historical, where I will find myself feeling wounded or hurt. And that's when I do what I did when I was younger of acknowledging it out loud, saying quickly, I'm feeling hurt in this moment because I'm reminded of how I felt around my father or around the way my father treated me. And when you don't hold things in your head, you don't keep them buried and locked away in some secret room in your brain, you're able to open it up, and it's no longer something that's going to haunt you and to burden you and to keep you down. And so I do that constantly. If I'm not feeling good, I say it out loud. We have a propensity as human beings, when people ask us, because we've been trained by the media, that your emotions are a burden to other people. So you say constantly, oh, I'm okay, when asked how you're doing, instead of saying, no, I'm not okay. And I just need to acknowledge that. Doesn't mean that I'm expecting you to solve my problems, but I need to say it out loud so that way I can acknowledge it and then begin the journey to heal myself. You know, I think about mental health and physical health. When we think about physical health, we will tell every single person that we started a new diet, that we're going to the gym, that we want a workout buddy, that we are doing swimming now, anything. But when you are on a journey of mental health, and you won't tell anyone, you won't acknowledge the anxiety you're going through, you won't acknowledge your sadness, you'll acknowledge happiness, because we believe and been trained that that's what other people want to hear. But there is deeper connections in being honest about all of your emotions. And so for me, when I acknowledge it and say it out loud, yes, I'm feeling triggered right now because of something that happened to my father. I say it so that other people know they're not alone in their feelings, but then also by saying it, I'm not alone anymore. It's not holding me back. I'm okay. I'm talking about my mental health, which then says, oh, when I get home tonight, I need to practice a little harder because I don't know why that popped up, but it did. So now practice, instead of 30 minutes practicing, I'm going to take an hour and practice and tell myself that I'm okay, heal from this, forgive my father. I do it all over again. It's a continuous thing. And there's one other thing that you said that I just want to remind you of. And I told myself I'm not going to come in here and do any of what I do. Don't worry, because I have a tendency to do this on other people's shows, so I'm not going to do it. But I will say to you is I heard a fear-based decision being made that's dictating your life of, I don't ever want my daughters, those two little sweet girls, to feel like dad was not who he built himself to be up in his mind. And I think you have to let go of that thought and idea, because no matter what your intentions are, their experience is always going to be different from yours. And there will be a point where they're going to say, dad was great, but dad was also an asshole.
No.
Sorry to tell you. And I think you should start to prepare yourself, because it sounds as if you're holding a lot on to the fact of healing yourself and your past through changing the relationship you have with your daughters. And that's okay to do. It's okay to change and break patterns. But if you hold yourself to a standard that is higher than someone else's experience, then you're always going to be the only one that's going to be disappointed.
Oh my God, that was good advice.
So just let that go. Let that go.
Do you know, like, I did a podcast with Gabor Mate. Do you know that guy? He's like an addiction. I mean, he's a beautiful guy. And I told him this story about, like, you know, when Mabel, who you met, like, who you may have noticed, was playing with a lighter when you arrived at the house. Part of that is because, like, I like, you know, like there was a time, like, so when I was chatting to Gabor Mate, who's an amazing guy, like she would, like if she asked for chocolate or whatever, I go, look, listen, Mabel, you probably shouldn't have chocolate because it's like, and she goes, I want chocolate. I go, all right.
Yeah.
Because her mum is much more sort of stable, regimented, disciplined, all those kind of things. And Gabor Matt goes, you can't, he said the same thing as you, so this is obviously true. He goes that you are trying to work through your own childhood anxieties through your child by not you think that you can't allow them to cry or suffer in any way. That's an unrealistic expectation, and you'll end up doing them a disservice by letting them play with lighters, giving them chocolate in the middle of the night. Oh my God. Yeah, no, thank you for taking the risk. There was a moment in that where I thought, what I'm going to do now is my best Jamaican accent. So Karamo thinks I am his father. Chide him with some patois slang.
Some patois slang. That would have been okay with me. You're actually from the UK, so it wouldn't have been too far off. Yeah.
That connection.
Can I give you something else?
God, all right, bloody hell, Jesus.
Just something else.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Of course. I tell you what. I will, because I respect you and I think you're authentic at what you do. And when I see you do that stuff on Queer Eye, I think that it ain't easy in those kind of environments to be sincere and authentic and loving. And I feel like, as you have said, the success of that show is built on the sort of organic and beautiful chemistry. I know how television works. I know there's an editorial process. I know there's brilliant producers that work on your show. But that there is an authenticity and lovingness to the way. Love is the main thing. I think you make them people feel loved.
Yes.
And it's very, very beautiful to watch. So yes, I will accept your free expert advice.
I think of you so very highly. Honestly, I just watch you. I've watched your career for many years before this conversation, and something that I've heard you say in this interview alone, and I've heard you say in other ones because I've listened to your podcast, is you compare yourself. And if I can leave you with something of saying, comparison is the thief of joy. So you're robbing yourself of more beautiful experiences than you're already having. And I heard you say it with your wife right here, casually, not disrespectful, but you said, she's the more stern one and more stable one. By comparing yourself and saying that she's more of this, it takes away your ability to recognize those great qualities in yourself and also your ability to grow. And I'm not saying that you're stuck or stagnant. Never want to assume that. But I don't want you to continue to compare yourself to someone else or how someone else acts, because what you're doing and what I witness, even from this small interaction between your wife, you and your daughter, and we're talking about that with the lighter, you did something that was so very special. You came down to her level and you spoke to her in such a mature and loving way, which I think a lot of times adults don't do because we assume that children don't have the brain capacity to understand or to be respected. And there's something about a father getting down to their eye level of their daughter and saying, I see what you're doing, and I'm going to have a conversation with you about it. And I don't want you to compare yourself to what your wife is doing, because you're doing your own exceptional things, whether you're realizing it or not. But you're taking away from that by saying she's more stable or she's more this. And I don't want you to do that.
Karamo Brown, you beautiful bastard. You're queer-eyeing me on my own fucking podcast.
Not at all.
Queer-eyeing me to the precipice of tears with your sheer beauty. I'll tell you where a lot of this comes from. I'll give you some, not that, I'm not trying to justify my negative patterns and thereby recommit to them.
Yeah.
But, I just want to, give you some context for that. One thing is that, as a 12-step program guy, I'm continually looking out for defective behaviors, negative behaviors that might lead me back to, substance misuse. I don't watch porn. I don't objectify people that I'm sexually attracted to until this interview.
Yeah.
and then, so I'm sort of vigilant about negative behaviors. And in my therapist, actually, he's very he gives me we use British soccer type references, yellow cards and red cards for speaking negatively about myself. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, right, so there's that, is that I'm continually trying to look out for, oh my God, how would I destroy my life through my addictive behaviors? I sort of do experience quite a lot of fear, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I've been famous for a while, so I'm sort of vigilant for what is it like that I've said that's going to be repackaged? And I did an interview a little while ago in which I said, like, like to give props to Laura. I said, like, she does much more of the practical stuff. And it's sort of in my country where I'm more famous, it led to like lots of like discussion shows, them saying like, Russell Brand says he doesn't change diapers. Russell Brand, like sexist, all this. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not sexy. I'm not like setting it up as this is the way other people should live. This just happens to be the dynamic in our home, So that's what's happened. There's the conditioning influences, I would say, in making that comparative statement is, which I am going to take your advice. I'm not saying I don't want your advice. I want it. It's great. You're correct. Thank you. But one is like this, I've developed a kind of vigilance around, oh God, what are people going to say? Is this going to get extracted and used against me? And the other one is because I know that in the past, any addict that involves, even when you've spoke about your previous self, you have this image of yourself of like, I did these things. And like, even I was, very interested when you talked about like domestic violence. I'm thinking, oh my God, what's this man like in relationships? What was he like in relationships where he's having physical fights and stuff? I'm interested in that. But sometimes I think in my case, the owning of my own negativity can bleed into a sort of a self-damning, needing approval from the outside and that kind of stuff. So you're basically right.
Yeah, but that started for you before the addiction.
Yeah, well, I would say you're right, because I say that the roots of my addiction are probably in codependency and enmeshment with my mother. So, like, that's there long before I'm picking up substance, and then food, and then sort of pornography. Those things are there. I'm 15, 16 by the time drugs are part of the equation. Same.
And also, I don't think that behavior, you said, acknowledging the negative behavior. I don't like to label things negative or not. I like to say that that's just a part of your personality that you can grow from. And I think that when we stop thinking of things as positive or negative and start looking at every decision we make as an ability to grow, I think it takes some of that pressure that we all have on ourselves, because a lot of things you said is like, I have to protect myself because of the way media picks up. I'm protecting, and so that means part of protection is pressure, fear. All of that is all enabled and rounded to one. And so I don't want to ever put that on you of making you feel like you have to protect yourself or that something you did is negative. I just want you to see in that you are so amazing and you have so many great qualities, things that you know of, and things that I think there's probably even more that you're fearful to say because you have to protect yourself because of how it's going to be perceived or how other people will react to it, which my goal and my hope for you is that you would be able to let that go at some point.
My God, you're a good therapist. I'd like to book an hour a week of this stuff. Thank you very much. Welcome. That's really very generous of you and very beautifully put in it, and I understand it. Thank you. Now, let's return to you, because remember...
Yes, this is about...
This is about you.